Eagle mentality. 12 rules that make you high value and unstoppable. The difference between winners and the rest isn't talent, it's mentality. Talent fades, luck runs out, motivation disappears. But mentality? Mentality decides who rises and who stays average. Eagles don't compete with chickens. They don't explain themselves. They don't wait for permission. This audiobook will not entertain you. It will rewire you. If you are tired of being overlooked, tired of settling, tired of knowing you were meant for more, then listen carefully. Because once you adopt the eagle mentality, there is no going back to the ground. Chapter 1. Stop thinking like the crowd. If you think like everyone else, you'll live like everyone else. Most people never fail in life. They simply never rise. They wake up, they scroll, they complain, they repeat yesterday, and they call that living. You have a choice. You can think like the crowd, or you can rise above it. There is no third option. The crowd feels safe. The crowd feels familiar. The crowd feels comfortable. And that's exactly why the crowd stays average. That's the key. The crowd moves sideways, never upward. Look around you. The crowd follows trends. The crowd copies opinions. The crowd repeats excuses. Crowds don't climb. Crowds circulate. They move sideways. They move in circles. They move together, right into mediocrity. Eagles don't move sideways. Eagles gain altitude. Average minds ask, what's normal? Eagle minds ask, what's possible? Average minds seek comfort. Eagle minds seek altitude. That's the difference. And you must understand this early. The crowd will never take you where you secretly want to go. Why the crowd feels so tempting. The crowd removes responsibility. When you follow the crowd, you don't have to think. You don't have to decide. You don't have to risk being wrong. You just blend in, and blending in feels safe. That's why people say things like, everyone does it. This is just how life is. Be realistic. Don't aim too high. Those are not statements of truth. They are statements of fear. You have a choice. You can borrow the crowd's fear, or you can build your own discipline. It's not about intelligence. It's not about luck. It's not about talent. It's about mentality. Common advice is common for a reason. Here's a hard truth most people won't tell you. Common advice produces common results. Play it safe. Follow the system. Wait your turn. Don't rock the boat. That advice sounds wise. It sounds mature. It sounds responsible. But look at who gives it. People who are tired. People who are stuck. People who settled and now want you to settle too. You don't need their permission. Every person who escaped mediocrity did one thing first. They stopped listening to common advice. That's the key. Real-world example. The unpopular path. Look at anyone who built something meaningful. Entrepreneurs, athletes, creators, leaders. In the beginning, they all looked strange. They worked while others relaxed. They saved while others spent. They trained while others slept. The crowd laughed first. Then the crowd criticized. Then the crowd asked for advice. That's always the order. You don't need their approval. You need your discipline. It's not about popularity. It's about positioning. Crowd thinking is emotional thinking. The crowd reacts. Eagles respond. The crowd chases feelings. Eagles follow standards. When emotions run high, the crowd panics. When emotions run high, eagles stay calm. That's the key. If you think emotionally, you will act impulsively. If you act impulsively, you will regret it repeatedly. High-value individuals do not outsource decisions to emotions. They operate from principle. You have a choice: react like the crowd or respond like an eagle.
The illusion of safety. The crowd promises safety, but safety is an illusion. Plain safe doesn't protect you from regret. It protects you from growth. And growth always feels unsafe at first. Every level up feels uncomfortable. Every transformation feels lonely. Every new altitude feels unfamiliar. That's why most people turn back. The crowd feels safe, but safety is the enemy of greatness. Repeat that. The crowd feels safe, but safety is the enemy of greatness. How crowd thinking shows up in daily life. Crowd thinking isn't dramatic, it's subtle. It shows up as hitting snooze because everyone's tired, staying in a job you hate because at least it's stable, staying quiet when you should speak because you don't want trouble, spending money to look rich instead of saving to become rich, waiting for motivation instead of building discipline. That's the key. Crowd thinking disguises itself as logic, but logic without vision is a trap.
Altitude requires separation. You cannot rise without separating, not emotionally, not arrogantly, but intentionally. Eagles don't hate chickens, they just don't live with them. High-value people don't argue with the crowd, they outgrow it. You don't need to announce your separation, you demonstrate it through action. Different habits, different priorities, different standards. That's the key. What you must start doing. Behavioral instructions. Here's what transformation looks like in real terms. 1. Audit your inputs. If everyone around you thinks small, you must think alone. Reduce noise, reduce opinions, reduce comparison. 2. Question normal. Normal is not a goal. Normal is the average of broken systems. 3. Build private discipline. Do the work when no one is watching, especially when no one is watching. 4. Delay comfort. Comfort now costs power later. Discomfort now builds freedom later. You have a choice. No one is coming to save you, and that's good news. Stop explaining your path. The crowd will never understand altitude. If you explain too much, you doubt yourself. If you justify too much, you weaken your resolve. You don't need their permission. Silence is strength. Consistency is proof. That's the key.
Why most people return to the crowd. They return because standing alone is hard. They return because discipline is uncomfortable. They return because growth demands sacrifice. But here's the truth. The pain of discipline is temporary. The pain of regret is permanent. Choose wisely. You have a choice. Reinforcement, the eagle standard. Say this clearly. I do not think like the crowd. I do not move sideways. I do not seek comfort. I seek altitude. Repeat it, because repetition builds identity, and identity drives behavior. That's the key. Closing the chapter. If you think like everyone else, you'll live like everyone else. If you rise above the crowd, your life must rise too. You've learned why the crowd keeps people average. You've learned why safety is the enemy of greatness. You've learned why altitude demands separation. But understanding is not enough. You must now learn how to stand alone without breaking. You mastered the truth about the crowd. Now let's talk about the power that builds you in silence.
Chapter 2. Solitude is a weapon, not a weakness. Truth. High-value people are built alone. Most people are terrified of being alone. Silence scares them. Stillness exposes them. Solitude forces honesty. So they fill every gap with noise, music, messages, meetings, opinions. They stay busy so they don't have to face themselves. You have a choice. You can escape into noise, or you can sharpen yourself in solitude. That's the key.
Why solitude creates power. Solitude is not loneliness. Solitude is separation with purpose. Loneliness weakens. Solitude strengthens. When you are alone, distractions disappear. When distractions disappear, clarity arrives. When clarity arrives, discipline becomes possible. High-value people are not formed in crowds. They are formed in quiet rooms, early mornings, late nights, uncelebrated effort. Isolation before domination. Repeat that. Isolation before domination. The noisy life versus the silent life. Most people live noisy lives. They broadcast everything, every move, every thought, every emotion. They want attention before achievement, validation before value, applause before results. Eagles move differently. Eagles build in silence. They train quietly. They plan privately. They improve invisibly. That's the key. Noise feels productive, but it isn't. Silence feels uncomfortable, but it works. Solitude sharpens discipline. Discipline cannot grow in chaos. When you are alone, excuses have nowhere to hide. There is no one to impress, no one to blame, no one to distract you. Just you and your standards. It's not about motivation. It's not about mood. It's about discipline. And discipline is built in isolation. You wake up early when no one is watching. You train when no one is clapping. You study when no one is praising. That's the key. Why most people avoid being alone. They avoid solitude because solitude asks hard questions. Who are you really? What are you avoiding? What are you capable of? Noise numbs. Solitude reveals. Most people would rather stay distracted than improve. You have a choice. Face yourself or stay average with everyone else. Solitude builds emotional strength. Emotional weakness comes from dependency. When you always need company, approval, or reassurance, you give away control. Solitude takes it back. When you learn to sit alone with discomfort, you stop fearing rejection. You stop chasing approval. You stop reacting emotionally. That's the key. Calm is power, and calm is built in silence. The broadcasting trap. Social media trains people to perform, not progress. They post workouts instead of finishing them. They announce goals instead of executing them. They talk about plans instead of building them. High-value people reverse this. They do the work first. They let the results speak for themselves later. You don't need their permission. You don't need their applause. You need results. Isolation before domination. Real-world example. The quiet builder. Look at anyone truly successful. In the beginning, they disappeared. They said no more than they said yes. They reduced social life. They increased self-discipline. While others were partying, they were practicing. While others were scrolling, they were studying. While others were talking, they were working. That's not sacrifice, that's strategy. That's the key. Solitude exposes weak habits. When you're alone, you can't hide behind activity. You see your procrastination, your excuses, your inconsistency. And that's uncomfortable. But discomfort is information. Solitude shows you exactly where to improve. You have a choice. Use that information to grow or run back to noise. How to use solitude as a weapon. Practical instructions. This is where transformation happens. Schedule daily silence. No phone, no music, no input. Just thinking, planning, reflecting. Build a private routine, a routine no one sees. Training, reading, skill building. Stop over-communicating. Say less, explain less. Let actions speak. Create before you consume. Output before input. Build before browsing. That's the key. Solitude builds identity. When you are always around others, you borrow identities, their opinions, their fears, their limits. Solitude forces you to define yourself. What do you stand for? What do you refuse to tolerate? What are your non-negotiables? High-value identity is forged alone. Isolation before domination. The pain of solitude versus the pain of regret. Solitude hurts at first. It feels boring. It feels empty. It feels uncomfortable. But regret hurts longer. Regret asks, what if you had stayed disciplined? What if you had focused? What if you had committed? Choose your pain wisely. You have a choice. Why eagles need silence to fly higher. Eagles rely on vision. Vision requires clarity. Clarity requires silence. Noise blurs judgment. Silence sharpens it. That's the key. If your mind is always busy, it can never be powerful. Stop confusing isolation with failure. Some people think being alone means something is wrong. Wrong. Sometimes solitude means you are ahead. Sometimes it means you're evolving. Sometimes it means you're outgrowing people. Growth often looks like isolation from the outside. That's normal. That's necessary. Repetition for reinforcement. Say this until it sticks. I don't fear solitude. I use solitude. I build in silence. I dominate in results. Isolation before domination. The discipline of staying quiet. Not everything needs to be shared. Not everyone needs to know your plans. Silence protects momentum. The more you talk, the more energy you leak. You don't need their permission. You don't need their validation. That's the key. Most people quit here. This is where most people turn back. When it gets quiet, when attention fades, when no one notices. They mistake silence for failure. Eagles understand the truth. Silence is preparation. Isolation before domination. Closing the chapter. Solitude is not a weakness. It is a weapon. It sharpens discipline. It strengthens emotions. It builds identity. You've learned how silence creates power. You've learned why noisy lives stay average. You've learned why high-value people are built alone. But solitude alone is not enough. Silence prepares you. Discipline moves you. You embraced isolation. Now it's time to master the force that turns effort into dominance. Chapter 3. Discipline will take you where motivation never can. Stop waiting to feel ready. Most people are waiting to feel motivated, waiting to feel confident, waiting to feel inspired, waiting to feel ready. They wait their entire lives, and life passes them anyway. You have a choice. You can wait for a feeling, or you can move with discipline. That's the key. The lie of motivation. Motivation is the most overrated force in personal development. It feels good. It sounds powerful. It sells books and videos. But motivation is unreliable. It shows up when life is easy. It disappears when life gets hard. And life will get hard. That's the truth most people ignore. They build their future on a feeling, and feelings change. Repeat this until it's permanent. Feelings change. Standards don't. That's the key. Why waiting to feel ready is a trap. Readiness is an illusion. No one feels ready before they rise. No one feels prepared before they grow. No one feels confident before they act. Confidence is the reward of action, not the requirement. You don't act because you feel ready. You feel ready because you acted. You have a choice. Wait until you feel ready, or become ready through discipline. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is structural. Mood fluctuates. Structure holds. That's why discipline wins. Discipline doesn't care how you feel. Discipline doesn't negotiate. Discipline doesn't ask permission. You don't need their permission. You don't even need your own emotions' permission. You need standards. Feelings change. Standards don't. Athletes don't train when they feel like it. Elite athletes don't wake up motivated every day. They wake up disciplined. They act tired. They train sore. They train bored. They train when no one is watching because competition doesn't care about feelings. Neither does life. That's the key. The athlete who trains only when motivated loses. The athlete who trains by standard dominates. Soldiers don't ask how they feel. Soldiers don't check their mood before action. They follow protocol. They follow the training. They follow discipline. Because in high-pressure environments, emotion is a liability. Discipline saves lives. That's not dramatic. That's real. If discipline can protect lives, it can protect your future. Discipline is self-respect in action. Every disciplined action sends a message. I do what I said I would do. I don't need to feel good to perform. I keep promises to myself. That builds self-respect. Motivation boosts emotion. Discipline builds identity. That's the key. Stop asking, how do I feel? High-value people don't start the day asking, how do I feel? They ask, what needs to be done? Feelings are checked later. Standards are enforced now. It's not about comfort. It's not about excitement. It's not about motivation. It's about discipline. The cost of emotional living. When you live emotionally, you work inconsistently. You train inconsistently. You show up inconsistently. Inconsistent input produces inconsistent results. That's the key. Discipline removes randomness from your life. Practical discipline framework. Do this daily. This is where transformation becomes real. 1. Non-negotiables. Choose 3 daily actions you do regardless of mood. No discussion, no excuses. 2. Time-based commitment. Work by time, not feeling. I work for 60 minutes, period. 3. Remove decision fatigue. Decide once, execute daily. Less thinking, more doing. 4. Track execution, not emotion. Did you do it or not? That's all that matters. That's the key. Discipline feels heavy before it feels powerful. At first, discipline feels restrictive. It feels uncomfortable. It feels demanding. It feels lonely. But over time, it becomes freedom. Because disciplined people are not controlled by mood, people, or pressure. They control themselves. You have a choice. Why discipline creates confidence. Confidence doesn't come from hype. It comes from evidence. When you repeatedly do hard things, your mind learns to trust you. That's real confidence. Motivation lies. Discipline proves. Feelings change. Standards don't. Stop romanticizing motivation. Motivation is loud. Discipline is quiet. Motivation is exciting. Discipline is boring. And boring wins. That's the key. If you wait for motivation, you stay average. If you commit to discipline, you rise. What to stop doing immediately. Stop waiting to feel inspired. Stop negotiating with yourself. Stop making excuses sound intelligent. Stop quitting when it gets dull. You don't need their permission. You don't need perfect conditions. You need standards. Discipline is doing it anyway. Do it tired. Do it scared. Do it bored. Do it imperfectly. Just do it consistently. That's the key. The identity shift. Say this until it becomes permanent. I don't rely on motivation. I rely on discipline. I act regardless of mood. I keep standards. Feelings change. Standards don't. Why eagles don't need motivation. Eagles don't wait for the perfect wind. They adjust. They move. They fly anyway. They don't complain about conditions. They dominate them. That's the mentality you are building. The long-term payoff. Discipline compounds. One day doesn't change your life, but repeated disciplined days do. Most people quit too early to feel the payoff. Don't be like most people. You have a choice. Final reinforcement. Motivation starts things. Discipline finishes them. Motivation excites the mind. Discipline builds the future. Feelings change. Standards don't. That's the key. Closing the chapter. You've learned the truth about motivation. You've learned why discipline is the real separator. You've learned how standards beat emotions. But discipline alone is not enough. Discipline without standards still settles. Standards decide what you accept and what you refuse. You stopped waiting to feel ready. Now it's time to raise the bar you live by. Chapter 4. Raise your standards or accept your limits. Truth. Your life rises only to the level of your standards. Every life has a ceiling. Not imposed by the world. Not imposed by luck. Not imposed by talent. It is imposed by standards. Your standards decide what you accept. What you accept decides how you live. That's the key. Most people don't choose their standards. They inherit them. From family. From friends. From culture. From fear. They never stop to ask, is this acceptable or just familiar? So they tolerate. They tolerate poor health. They tolerate an average income. They tolerate weak relationships. They tolerate disrespect from others and from themselves. And tolerance slowly destroys potential. You have a choice. Raise your standards or accept your limits.
Low standards don't hurt immediately. That's why they're dangerous. Low standards feel harmless at first. Skipping workouts doesn't hurt today. Overspending doesn't hurt today. Staying in a bad relationship doesn't hurt today. But standards compound, and over time, low standards create a small life. That's the key. Health, where low standards show first. Look at health. Low standards sound like this. I'll start next week. One meal won't matter. I don't have time. That's not logic. That's tolerance. High-value people don't wait for health to collapse. They enforce standards early. Sleep is non-negotiable. Movement is non-negotiable. Energy is protected. It's not about genetics. It's not about age. It's not about excuses. It's about discipline. Money. Standards decide freedom. Most people don't have money problems. They have standard problems. They tolerate debt. They tolerate impulsive spending. They tolerate living paycheck to paycheck. And they call it normal. But normal is not free. High standards with money look boring. Budgets, delayed gratification, long-term thinking. That's the key. Eagles don't chase appearances. They build leverage. Relationships, the silent ceiling. This is where standards matter most. Who you allow close to you determines how high you can rise. Low standards sound like, "At least I'm not alone. They didn't mean it. This is just how they are." No. What you tolerate becomes your ceiling. Disrespect tolerated becomes disrespect repeated. High-value people are selective, not arrogant, intentional. You don't need their permission to walk away. Why almost good enough is dangerous. Almost is the enemy. Almost disciplined. Almost healthy. Almost focused. Almost successful. Almost never changes lives. Eagles reject almost. They demand excellence from themselves, not perfection, consistency. That's the key. Standards create identity. Your standards tell the world who you are. If you accept chaos, you become chaotic. If you accept mediocrity, you become mediocre. If you accept excellence, you rise. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your standards. Repeat that. Why raising standards feels lonely. When you raise your standards, you outgrow people, and that's uncomfortable. Some will call you too much. Some will say you've changed. You have changed. That's the point. You have a choice. Stay relatable or become exceptional. Practical. How to raise standards. Do this. This is not philosophy. This is action. 1. Define non-negotiables. Health, work, boundaries. Decide once, enforce daily. 2. Remove tolerance. If something drains you, limit it. If something disrespects you, end it. 3. Upgrade inputs. Better books, better routines, better people. 4. Audit weekly. Ask, did my actions match my standards? That's the key. Discomfort is the price of higher standards. Raising standards feels hard at first. You say no more. You explain less. You demand more from yourself. That discomfort is growth. Low standards feel easy now and painful later. High standards feel hard now and powerful later. You have a choice. Eagles live above average conditions. Eagles don't nest low. They choose high ground because survival demands it. Your standards are your altitude. If you live low,
you think low. If you raise standards, your thinking follows. That's the key. Stop negotiating with yourself. Every time you negotiate, you weaken your standards. I'll do it tomorrow. Just this once. It doesn't really matter. It always matters. Standards only work when they are enforced. You don't need motivation. You need enforcement.
The cost of weak standards. Weak standards cost energy, confidence, respect, and time. And time never comes back. That's the key. Repetition for reinforcement. Say this until it becomes identity. I raise my standards. I don't tolerate mediocrity. I protect my energy. I live deliberately. What you tolerate becomes your ceiling. Standards create freedom. People think standards restrict life. Wrong. Standards remove chaos. When you know what you accept, life becomes simple. Decisions become easy. Focus becomes sharp. That's the key.
Why most people stay limited? They don't lack opportunity. They lack standards. They wait for life to improve instead of demanding improvement from themselves. You have a choice. Final reinforcement. Your life will never exceed the standards you enforce. Not once, not ever. Raise them or accept the limits that follow. That's the truth. Closing the chapter. You've seen how standards shape health, money, and relationships. You've learned why almost good enough keeps people average. You've learned that tolerance builds ceilings. But even with high standards, one weakness can still destroy everything. Emotional weakness. If you can't control your emotions, they will control your outcomes. You raised your standards. Now it's time to master your inner world. Chapter 5. Cut emotional weakness before it cuts you. Command. Control your emotions, or they will control you. Your emotions are not the problem. Your lack of control is. Most people think emotions are harmless. They are not. Unchecked emotions drain power, invite manipulation, and destroy momentum. You have a choice. You can master your emotions or become a servant to them. That's the key. Emotional weakness is invisible but expensive. Emotional weakness doesn't announce itself. It whispers. It shows up as overreacting to disrespect, taking things personally, seeking validation, explaining yourself, getting offended easily. Each reaction leaks power. One reaction doesn't ruin your life, but repeated reactions build a weak identity. And weak identities get controlled.
Why emotional people are easy to manipulate. If someone can trigger you, they can control you. That's not an opinion, that's a fact. Emotionally reactive people are predictable. Predictable people are controllable. Calm people are dangerous because they cannot be shaken. Repeat this until it locks in. Calm people control outcomes. That's the key. Reactivity is the language of insecurity. When someone reacts instantly, they reveal something. They reveal attachment. They reveal ego. They reveal fear of losing control. High-value people don't react. They respond. Reaction is emotional. Response is strategic. You have a choice. Why the world tries to trigger you. The world rewards reactivity. Drama sells. Outrage spreads. Emotion gets attention. That's why people provoke. That's why the media amplifies fear. That's why social platforms reward anger. But attention is not power. Control is. And control comes from calm. Calm is not weakness. Let's be clear. Calm is not passivity. Calm is not fear. Calm is not silence without strength. Calm is dominance. The calm person sees more. The calm person hears more. The calm person thinks clearly while others panic. That's the key. Observe more, react less. This is the discipline. When something triggers you, pause, breathe, observe, ask, what is actually happening? What do I gain by reacting? What do I lose? Most reactions cost more than they give. Calm people control outcomes. Emotions are data, not commands. Your emotions are information. They are signals, not instructions. Anger signals a boundary. Fear signals risk. Sadness signals loss. But signals are not orders. High-value people feel emotions without being ruled by them. It's not about suppressing emotion. It's about commanding it. Why eagles stay calm in chaos? Eagles don't panic in storms. They adjust altitude. They ride the wind. They conserve energy. While others flap wildly, eagles glide. That's not talent. That's control. That's the mentality you are building.
The cost of emotional living. Emotional living costs respect, authority, trust, and focus. People stop taking emotional individuals seriously. They become noise. You don't need their permission to become calm. You need discipline. Real-world example: power in stillness. Look at leaders under pressure. The ones who dominate speak slower, move less, decide later. They don't rush. They don't explain. They don't explode. Their calm unsettles others. That's power. The ego reaction trap. Most emotional reactions come from the ego, the need to be right, the need to be seen, the need to defend. The ego wants to win arguments. Discipline wants to win outcomes. That's the key. Sometimes silence wins more than speech. Sometimes walking away wins more than fighting. Practical discipline. How to build emotional control. This is not a theory. This is training. 1. Delay response rule. Never respond immediately when emotional. Time restores power. 2. Lower your voice. A calm tone creates authority. Loudness signals loss of control. 3. Watch patterns. Notice what triggers you repeatedly. That's where your growth is. 4. Detach from outcome. Needing to win emotionally makes you lose strategically. That's the key. Stop taking things personally. Most things are not about you. They are about 1. Other people's fear. 2. Other people's insecurity. 3. Other people's projections. When you stop taking things personally, you stop bleeding energy. You have a choice. Emotional control builds respect. People respect those who are steady, not perfect, steady. When pressure rises and you remain calm, people follow. Calm people control outcomes. Repeat it. The discipline of not reacting. Not reacting feels unnatural at first. Your body wants to defend. Your ego wants to speak. Your emotions want release. But discipline says wait. And waiting changes everything. That's the key. Why most people fail here? They confuse emotion with authenticity. They think, if I don't react, I'm being fake. Wrong. Control is not fake. Control is mature. Children react. Leaders respond. You have a choice. Emotional strength is quiet. Real strength doesn't need to prove itself.
It doesn't shout. It doesn't threaten. It doesn't over-explain. It waits. And waiting is power. Repetition for reinforcement. Say this until it becomes instinct. I observe more. I react less. I stay calm under pressure. I control outcomes. Calm people control outcomes. Why emotional mastery elevates everything. When emotions are controlled, decisions improve, relationships stabilize, focus sharpens. Life becomes predictable because you become predictable to yourself. That's the key. The ultimate emotional advantage. When you are calm, others reveal themselves. Manipulation fails. Drama loses power. Silence exposes truth. You don't need their permission. You need composure. Final reinforcement. Emotions are tools, not rulers. Use them. Don't obey them. Control your emotions, or they will control you. That's not a warning. That's a law. Closing the chapter. You've learned how emotional reactions drain power. You've learned why calm creates dominance. You've learned how control protects your future. But emotional control alone is not enough. There is another silent weakness that keeps people small. The need to explain. The need to justify. The need to be understood. You mastered emotional control. Now it's time to cut the habit that exposes insecurity.
Chapter 6. Stop explaining yourself. Truth. High-value people don't seek approval. Most people talk too much. They explain, they justify, they defend, they over-communicate, and every unnecessary explanation leaks power. You have a choice. You can explain yourself to be understood, or you can execute and be respected. That's the key. Why people explain themselves. People explain for one reason. They want approval. They want to be liked. They want to be understood. They want permission to be who they are. But high-value people don't ask for permission. They decide, they act, they move on. That's the difference.
Explaining is often insecurity disguised as communication. Let's be honest. Most explanations are not clear. They are insecure. They sound like, "I just want you to understand why," or "let me explain myself," or "I didn't mean it like that." These are not signs of strength. They are signs of self-doubt. You don't need their permission to live your life. That's the key. Why explaining weakens your position. The moment you explain unnecessarily, you shift power away from yourself. You signal doubt, uncertainty, need for validation. People don't respect explanations. They respect certainty. High-value people speak less and mean more. The approval trap. Approval is addictive. Once you start explaining, you start adjusting. You soften your truth. You compromise your standards. You shrink your presence, all to avoid discomfort. But discomfort is part of growth. You have a choice. Be approved by everyone or respected by the right ones. Results don't need explanations. Results speak a universal language. They don't argue, they don't justify, they don't negotiate. They simply exist. That's why execution is power. Repeat this until it locks in. Explanation is the language of doubt. Execution is the language of power. That's the key. Why eagles don't explain. Eagles don't announce their plans. They don't justify their altitude. They don't convince chickens why flying matters. They fly, and flight is proof. High-value people move the same way. Quiet, direct, unapologetic. The cost of over-explaining. Over-explaining costs you authority, mystery, respect, and time. It invites debate where none is needed. When you explain too much, you permit others to judge your decisions. You don't need their permission. When explanation becomes self-betrayal. Sometimes explaining goes further. You start apologizing for wanting more, setting boundaries, saying no, choosing yourself. That's self-betrayal. High-value people don't apologize for standards, they enforce them. That's the key. Silence is not weakness. Silence makes insecure people uncomfortable because silence cannot be controlled. When you stop explaining, others project, others guess, others reveal themselves. Silence is a filter. Those who respect you stay. Those who need control leave. Real-world example. Leaders and silence. Look at powerful leaders. They don't fill the silence nervously. They don't rush to justify decisions. They don't argue publicly. They state decisions once, then they execute. That calm certainty creates authority. Why arguments are a waste of power. Arguments are ego games. They don't change minds. They don't build futures. They don't create leverage. Execution does. You don't win by convincing critics. You win by outgrowing them. That's the key. Stop trying to be understood by everyone. Not everyone deserves access to your reasoning. Some people ask questions to understand. Others ask questions to control. Learn the difference. High-value people don't explain themselves to skeptics. They move forward anyway.
Practical discipline. How to stop explaining yourself. This is where change becomes visible. 1. Answer once, not repeatedly. State your decision. Do not defend it. 2. Replace words with action. Show progress instead of talking about it. 3. Use fewer words. Short sentences. Clear boundaries. 4. Let discomfort exist. Silence feels awkward at first. That's normal. That's the key. The power of being misunderstood. Being misunderstood is not a failure. It's often a sign you're ahead. Most innovators were misunderstood first. Most leaders were doubted first. Understanding comes later, after the results. You have a choice.
Explaining keeps you small. Explanation keeps you tied to opinions. Execution sets you free. When you stop explaining, you save energy, you gain clarity, you move faster. That's the key. Why calm confidence needs no defense. Confidence doesn't argue, it doesn't prove, it doesn't justify, it stands. If you're constantly explaining, ask yourself why. That question alone changes everything. Repetition for reinforcement. Say this until it becomes instinct. I don't over-explain, I execute. I let results speak. I move without permission. Explanation is the language of doubt. Execution is the language of power.
The ego detox. Explaining feeds ego. Silence starves it. When ego quiets, discipline rises. That's the key. Why most people never stop explaining. They fear rejection. They fear misunderstanding. They fear losing connection. But you don't lose connection by being strong. You lose connection by being unclear. High-value people choose clarity over comfort. When explanation is necessary. Yes, explanation has a place for teaching, for leadership, for alignment, but not for validation. Know the difference. That's the key.
Stop seeking closure through explanation. You don't need closure from others. You create closure through decisions. Waiting for understanding keeps you stuck. Moving forward sets you free.
Final reinforcement. Stop explaining. Start executing. Stop defending. Start building. Stop seeking approval. Start becoming undeniable. You don't need their permission. Closing the chapter. You've learned why explaining weakens authority. You've learned how execution silences critics. You've learned that approval is optional. But even with discipline, standards, calm, and silence, there is one more test. The test of pain. The test of reinvention. The test that separates those who evolve from those who stay the same. You stopped explaining yourself. Now it's time to shed the version of you that no longer serves.
Chapter 7. Pain is the price of reinvention. Shed the old version or stay trapped. Transformation is not comfortable. If it were, everyone would do it. If it were easy, everyone would rise. If it were painless, everyone would evolve. But that's not how life works. You have a choice. Stay who you are and stay where you are, or suffer intentionally and rise. That's the key. The truth most people avoid. Growth hurts. Not a little, deeply. It hurts the ego. It hurts relationships. It hurts routines. It hurts the identities you've carried for years. And that pain is not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that something is finally changing. Repeat this until it sinks in. No pain, no altitude. The eagle molting metaphor. The eagle does not stay powerful by comfort. At a certain point in its life, the eagle faces a choice. Continue living as it is, weak claws, dull beak, heavy feathers, and slowly die. Or retreat into isolation and endure intense pain. The eagle smashes its beak against the rock until it breaks off. Pain. It rips out old talons and waits for new ones to grow. Pain. It tears out heavy feathers that prevent flight. Pain. For weeks, the eagle cannot hunt, cannot fly, cannot dominate. But when the process is complete, the eagle rises again, stronger, lighter, sharper. That's the price of reinvention. You have a choice. Why most people never reinvent themselves. They fear pain more than mediocrity. They tolerate discomfort in silence. They complain but don't change. They dream but don't shed. Because shedding hurts. Letting go hurts. Outgrowing people hurts. Outgrowing versions of yourself hurts. But staying the same hurts longer. That's the key. Comfort is the enemy of altitude. Comfort feels safe, but comfort kills ambition. Comfort whispers, "You're fine as you are. Don't rock the boat. Why change now?" Comfort keeps you grounded. Eagles don't build nests on comfort, they build on cliffs. Repeat it again. No pain, no altitude. Growth always demands sacrifice. Let's be direct. If you want a higher level life, you must pay a higher price. You will lose old habits, old friends, old routines, old excuses. That's not punishment, that's preparation. It's not about loss, it's about exchange. That's the key.
You must kill the old identity. This is where most people fail. They want new results with old identities. It doesn't work. New altitude requires a new self. That means letting go of who you were, releasing the stories you tell yourself, dropping the labels that limit you. It's not about who you were. It's about who you're becoming. Loneliness is part of the process. Reinvention is lonely. You leave familiar ground before you reach new territory. There's a gap. Most people turn back there. High-value people push through. Loneliness is temporary. Regret lasts forever. That's the key. The discipline of enduring pain. This chapter is not about motivation. It's about discipline. It's not about fear. It's about commitment. It's not about comfort. It's about growth. Say it clearly. It's not about pain. It's about purpose. Real-world reinvention looks like this. Waking up when it's uncomfortable. Training when motivation is gone. Saying no when it feels awkward. Walking away when it hurts. Being misunderstood without explaining. That's reinvention. No applause, no shortcuts.
Why people romanticize growth. People talk about transformation like it's poetic. It's not. It's brutal. It's silent. It's lonely. But it works. That's the key. Pain filters the weak from the committed. Pain knows you. Altitude will too.
Stop negotiating with discomfort. Discomfort is not negotiable. It doesn't care about excuses. It doesn't respond to complaints. It only responds to action. You have a choice. Lean into pain now or be dragged by it later. The moment you want to quit. That moment matters. That's the moment of separation. When you want to quit, that's when the old version fights back. Don't listen. That voice wants safety, not growth. That's the key. Repetition for reinforcement. Say it until it's automatic. Pain is temporary. Growth is permanent. Comfort is expensive. Altitude is earned. No pain, no altitude. Why reinvention feels like loss? Because it is. You lose familiarity. You lose identity. You lose validation. But what you gain is leverage. You gain strength, clarity, authority, and freedom. That's the trade. Stop looking for a pain-free path. There isn't one. Every high-level life is built on pain. The difference is this. Some choose pain consciously. Others suffer unconsciously. You have a choice. The quiet confidence after reinvention. Once you shed the old self, you don't talk about it, you don't explain it, you don't announce it. You move differently. People notice without understanding why. That's power. This is why eagles fly alone. Not everyone can handle altitude. Not everyone can handle silence. Not everyone can handle pain. Eagles don't drag others up. They rise alone. Practical discipline. How to begin reinvention. 1. Identify what must die. Habits, relationships, excuses. 2. Create controlled discomfort. Train harder. Wake earlier. Reduce noise. 3. Expect resistance. From others, from yourself. 4. Do not explain. You learned this already. That's the key. The pain you avoid becomes the pain you live with. Avoiding pain now creates regret later. Discipline now creates freedom later. You decide. Reinvention is a one-way door. Once you truly change, you can't go back. And that's a good thing. Old comfort will feel small. Old excuses will sound weak. You outgrow them. Final reinforcement. Pain is not punishment. Pain is preparation. Altitude is not luck. Altitude is earned. Say it one last time. No pain, no altitude. Closing the chapter. You've accepted the pain of reinvention. You've shed the old skin. You've paid the price for altitude. But there's another discipline few can master. Not strength, not pain, not execution. Silence. Because at high altitude, noise is dangerous. You survived reinvention. Now it's time to protect your power. Chapter 8. Choose environments that force you to grow. Truth. Your environment is stronger than your willpower. Read that again. Your environment is stronger than your willpower. That's not motivation talk. That's reality. You can be disciplined. You can be ambitious. You can be hungry. But if you stay in a low environment, your growth will slow. Your thinking will shrink. Your standards will decay. You have a choice. Stay where you are and become like what surrounds you, or move, physically, mentally, socially, and let pressure forge you. That's the key.
Why willpower alone always loses. Most people rely on willpower. They say, I'll just try harder. I'll stay focused. I'll resist temptation. That works for a while. Then fatigue hits, stress hits, emotion hits, and environment wins. Because the environment doesn't argue. It doesn't negotiate. It programs. That's the key. Environment is the invisible hand. You don't rise or fall by motivation. You rise or fall by what you tolerate daily. The people you hear, the places you go, the routines you repeat. They shape your thoughts before you ever make a decision. You have a choice. Low-ground environments feel familiar. They are comfortable, noisy, distracting, and emotion-driven. In low ground, complaining is normal. Excuses are accepted. Mediocrity is defended. If you stay low, you think low. Repeat it. If you stay low, you think low. High-altitude environments feel uncomfortable at first. They demand discipline, accountability, performance, and results. In high altitude, standards are high, silence is respected, and results matter more than opinions. Pressure exists there, and pressure builds power. That's the key. People shape you faster than ideas. You don't become what you read, you become who you're around. Spend time with lazy people, excuses grow. With undisciplined people, standards drop. With bitter people, mindset rots. Spend time with focused people, clarity sharpens. With disciplined people, habits improve. With calm people, confidence stabilizes. You don't need their permission to change circles. Why loyalty to the wrong environment is self-sabotage. Some people stay stuck out of loyalty. Loyalty to old friends, old neighborhoods, old routines. But loyalty that costs growth is not loyalty. It's fear. That's the key. Your location is not neutral. Where do you live? Where do you work? Where do you spend time? None of it is neutral. Every place either expands you or shrinks you. You have a choice. Routines are environmental traps. You don't fail because you're weak. You fail because your routine is designed for failure. Late nights, constant noise, zero structure. That's not personality. That's the environment. Change the routine and behavior follows. That's the key. Why eagles choose cliffs, not cages. Eagles don't live where food is easy. They live where flying is required. High altitude forces strength. Low altitude rewards laziness. If you stay low, you think low.
The cost of staying where you've outgrown. Staying in the wrong environment costs you focus, confidence, momentum. Slowly, quietly, dangerously. You don't notice the decline until years are gone. That's the key. Upgrade the room before you upgrade the goal. Many people chase bigger goals in small rooms. That never works. The room shapes the outcome. Upgrade the conversations you hear, the expectations placed on you, the standards enforced around you. Results will follow.
Digital environment matters too. What you watch, what you scroll, what you consume, that's the environment. If your mind is fed drama, negativity, distraction, your discipline weakens. Curate ruthlessly. You have a choice. Why growth feels hard at first. When you change environments, you feel pressure. That's good. Pressure means you're stretching. Comfort means you're shrinking. That's the key. Stop trying to be stronger than your surroundings. That's arrogance. Even strong people fall in weak environments. Even disciplined people slip in chaotic spaces. The smart move is leverage. Change the environment.
High-value people design their environment. They don't hope for discipline. They engineer it. They remove distractions, choose harder rooms, surround themselves with standards. It's not about motivation. It's about structure. Repetition for reinforcement. Say it slowly. Environment beats intention. Pressure creates power. Comfort creates decay. If you stay low, you think low.
Practical discipline. How to change your environment. 1. Audit your circle. Who drains you? Who sharpens you? 2. Change your routine. Wake earlier. Reduce noise. Add structure. 3. Choose harder rooms, where you're not the best, where standards are enforced. 4. Control digital intake. What enters your mind shapes behavior. That's the key. You will be resisted. When you change environments, people notice. Some will guilt you, mock you, question you. That's confirmation. You don't need their permission. Why environmental change feels like betrayal? Because growth separates. Not everyone can come with you. That's not cruelty. That's reality. Eagles don't apologize for altitude. Staying low is a decision. Let's be honest, no one is holding you down. Staying in a low environment is a choice. So is leaving it. You have a choice.
The silent advantage of high environments. High environments demand less willpower, create automatic discipline, make focus normal. You stop fighting yourself. That's power. Final reinforcement. Your future is shaped daily by where you stand and who stands beside you. Choose wisely. If you stay low, you think low. Closing the chapter. You've learned to shed pain. You've learned to choose growth. You've learned to change environments. But even in the right environment, one weakness can destroy everything. Ego. Because the ego blinds judgment and invites downfall. You changed your surroundings. Now you must master yourself.
Chapter 9. Vision separates leaders from followers. Command. Think years ahead or stay stuck today. Most people live today for today. They wake up reacting, They move emotionally. They choose comfort over consequence. Leaders don't. Leaders live from the future backward. That's the difference. Vision is not imagination. Vision is discipline applied to time. You have a choice. You can chase short-term comfort, or you can build long-term power. That's the key.
Why most people stay followers. Followers don't lack intelligence. They lack vision. They ask, how do I feel right now? What's easiest today? What gives me relief? Leaders ask, where will this put me in 5 years? What am I sacrificing today for tomorrow? What must I delay now to dominate later? Short-term pleasure steals long-term power. Repeat it. Short-term pleasure steals long-term power. Vision is the ability to delay gratification. Vision means saying no today to say yes tomorrow. That's uncomfortable. That's lonely. That's why few people do it. Eating clean instead of indulging. Training instead of relaxing. Saving instead of spending. Building instead of consuming. It's not about motivation. It's about discipline. That's the key.
Why immediate pleasure is so dangerous. Immediate pleasure feels harmless. One lazy day, one impulsive purchase, one skipped workout, one wasted hour. But compounded over the years, it becomes regret. Followers trade years for moments. Leaders trade moments for years. You have a choice. Vision forces you to play the long game. The long game is boring at first. No applause, no validation, no instant results. Just work, just patience, just repetition. That's why vision separates the few from the many. Real-world example, the invisible years. Every successful person has invisible years. Years where no one noticed, no one believed, no one applauded. They trained while others partied. They learned while others scrolled. They invested while others spent. Then one day, the world calls it overnight success. That's the key.
Strategic patience is a weapon. Patience is not waiting. Patience is working while waiting. It's showing up even when results lag behind effort. Followers quit when results are delayed. Leaders understand lag time. Why emotion-based decisions kill vision. Emotion wants relief now. Vision wants results later. Emotion says, I deserve this. I'm tired. Just this once. Vision says, stay the course. Delay the reward. Finish the process. It's not about feeling good. It's about becoming strong.
Vision demands sacrifice. Let's be clear. Vision costs you comfort, entertainment, approval, short-term happiness. That's the price. If you're not sacrificing, you're not building vision. You're drifting. Followers ask for motivation. Leaders build systems. Motivation fades. Vision builds structure. Leaders don't rely on mood. They rely on standards. They decide once, then execute daily. That's the key. Short-term thinking keeps you busy but broke. Busy doesn't mean progressing. Many people are busy, running errands, chasing distractions, putting out fires, but they're not advancing. Vision simplifies. It filters noise. Vision is saying no more than yes. Every yes costs you time. Leaders guard time aggressively. They say no to meaningless conversations, low-return activities, time-wasting relationships. Not because they're arrogant, because they're focused. You don't need their permission. Delayed gratification builds authority. People respect those who can wait.
Why? Because waiting requires self-control. Self-control creates presence. Presence creates authority. That's the key. The discipline of thinking ahead. Ask yourself daily, where will this habit take me? Who will this decision turn me into? Is this aligned with my future? If not, cut it. Short-term pleasure steals long-term power. Why vision feels lonely. Vision separates you early before it rewards you later. Your friends may not understand. Your family may question you. Your circle may shrink. That's normal. Eagles fly alone before they fly high. The cost of comfort is always higher than discipline. Comfort feels cheap. Discipline feels expensive. But comfort charges interest. Discipline pays dividends. That's the key. Leaders invest where followers consume. Followers spend on status, trends, appearances. Leaders invest in skills, health, knowledge, and assets. One builds an image, the other builds power. You have a choice. Vision turns time into an ally. Without vision, time works against you. With vision, time compounds for you. Daily effort multiplied by years beats bursts of intensity every time. Practical discipline. How to build vision. This is where theory becomes action. 1. Set 5-year standards, not goals. Standards for health, income, skill, and mindset. 2. Reverse engineer your days. What must you do daily to reach that future? 3. Eliminate short-term traps. Identify habits stealing time and energy. 4. Schedule the important, not the urgent. Leaders plan. Followers react. That's the key.
Why most people never develop vision? Because vision requires responsibility. If you think long-term, you can't blame anyone else. Vision removes excuses. That's uncomfortable. Vision makes you calm under pressure. When you know where you're going, noise doesn't shake you. Criticism fades. Distractions lose power. Urgency decreases. That calm is dominance. Repetition for reinforcement. Say it again. I think long-term. I delay gratification. I sacrifice today to win tomorrow. Short-term pleasure steals long-term power. Vision is a daily discipline. Vision is not a dream board. It's a daily filter. Every action either moves you closer or pulls you away. Choose consciously. You have a choice. Why followers stay busy forever. They chase today. They ignore tomorrow. Then tomorrow arrives, with regret attached. Leaders pay the price early so they don't pay it forever. The silent confidence of vision. Vision creates quiet confidence. You don't rush, you don't panic, you don't explain. You execute. That's the key. Final reinforcement. Leaders see beyond the moment. Followers live inside it. Delay pleasure. Build power. Protect time. Short-term pleasure steals long-term power. Closing the chapter. You've learned to think long-term. You've learned to delay gratification. You've learned to build vision. But vision without control can still collapse. Because the final test of high value is not a strength, it's restraint. You learned to see the future. Now you must learn to protect your energy. Chapter 10. Live with purpose or be used by others. Truth. If you don't choose your mission, life will choose one for you. This is the final separation. Not discipline, not confidence, not vision. Purpose. Because without purpose, everything you've built can still be hijacked.
You can be strong and still be misused. You can be disciplined and still be directionless. You have a choice. Choose your mission deliberately or become a pawn in someone else's plan. That's the key.
Why purpose is the ultimate anchor. Purpose gives direction to power. Without it, discipline turns into burnout. Vision turns into ego. Strength turns into aggression. Purpose organizes your energy. It tells you what matters, what doesn't, what to say no to. Eagles don't drift. They decide. Drifting is the default state. Most people drift. They don't plan their lives. They react to them. They wake up responding to messages, to demands, to expectations. That's not living. That's being used. You have a choice. Aimless people become tools. This is an uncomfortable truth. People without purpose always end up serving someone else's, a boss's agenda, a family's expectations, a society's script. Not because they're weak, because they didn't decide. That's the key. Purpose creates focus. When you know your mission, distractions lose power, opinions fade, noise quiets. You stop chasing everything. You start protecting something. That focus is rare. That focus is dangerous.
Why purpose strengthens endurance. Motivation fades. Energy fluctuates. Purpose stays. Purpose keeps you going when results are slow. Effort feels invisible. Doubt creeps in. Purpose answers the question, why keep going? That's the key. Purpose is chosen, not found. Stop waiting to find your purpose. Purpose is built. It's chosen through commitment. You decide what you stand for, what you sacrifice for, what you refuse to tolerate. You don't need their permission. The difference between busy and purposeful. Busy people move all day and go nowhere. Purposeful people move selectively and go far. Purpose eliminates meaningless work, pointless conversations, empty commitments. That's power.
Why society pushes you to drift. A drifting person is easy to control. They consume more. They question less. They follow trends. A purposeful person is dangerous. They don't buy easily. They don't obey blindly. They don't waste time. That's the key. Purpose creates identity. Without purpose, identity is borrowed. You define yourself by job titles, social roles, external validation. With purpose, identity is internal. You know who you are before the world reacts. Eagles decide their direction. Eagles don't flap randomly. They lock onto a target. They adjust for wind. They endure storms, but direction stays constant. Eagles don't drift. They decide.
The pain of choosing purpose. Purpose costs comfort. It forces hard decisions, leaving people behind, saying no often, being misunderstood. That pain is temporary. Regret lasts longer. You have a choice. Why many avoid purpose. Purpose demands responsibility. If you choose your mission, you can't blame anyone else. No excuses, no victims. That accountability scares people. That's why few rise. Purpose filters relationships. Once you have a purpose, some people leave, some stay, some resist. That's normal. Not everyone is meant to walk your path. Eagles don't apologize for altitude. Purpose turns time into a weapon. Without purpose, time disappears.
With purpose, time is invested. Every day becomes intentional. Every hour has a direction. That's the key. It's not about passion, it's about discipline. Passion fades. Purpose is upheld by discipline. It's not about feeling inspired, it's about staying aligned. Repeat it. It's not about passion, it's about discipline.
Purpose requires saying no. You can't live with purpose and please everyone. You will disappoint people. That's unavoidable. What's avoidable is disappointing yourself. Practical discipline. How to define your purpose. This is not abstract. This is actionable. 1. Decide what you're building. Not what sounds good. What you'll commit years to. 2. Decide what you're willing to sacrifice. Time, comfort, approval. 3. Define non-negotiables. Health, integrity, growth. 4. Align daily actions. Purpose must show up daily. That's the key.
Purpose is tested under pressure. Anyone can talk purpose when life is easy. Purpose is proven when you're tired, you're tempted, you're doubted. That's when decision matters. Without purpose, success feels hollow. Why? Because they chased outcomes, not mission. Purpose gives meaning to achievement. Purpose is what keeps you grounded. When praise comes, purpose keeps you humble. When criticism comes, purpose keeps you steady. When chaos hits, purpose keeps you focused. That's dominance. Repetition for reinforcement. Say it clearly. I choose my mission. I protect my time. I act with intention. Eagles don't drift. They decide. The ultimate choice. No one will choose for you, and if you don't choose, life will. Others will assign you roles. Others will use your energy. Others will define your value. You have a choice. Final reinforcement. Purpose is not optional. It's the difference between living and existing, leading and following, power and potential wasted. Choose deliberately. Closing the chapter. You've learned to think differently. You've learned to stand alone. You've learned discipline, standards, control, silence, vision, and environment. Now you've learned the final rule: purpose. Eagle mentality is not about dominance over others. It's about mastery over yourself. Eagles don't drift. They don't beg. They don't explain. They decide. They commit. They rise. And now, you were never meant to live small. You were never meant to blend in, wait your turn, or beg for approval. The eagle mentality is not motivation. It is a decision to rise above noise, a decision to embrace discipline, a decision to cut weakness, raise standards, and move with purpose. From this moment forward, stop asking who will support you. Start asking who can keep up. Fly alone if you must, but fly higher than ever before. Now close this audiobook, stand up, and act, because eagles don't listen forever.